Most men assume women want slow, emotional, gentle intimacy every time. That if you're loving enough, patient enough, soft enough, that's what truly satisfies her. So when a woman says she wants it rougher, more intense, more dominant, it can feel confusing. You might wonder, is she less emotional than I thought? Or even, am I doing something wrong? Here's what nobody explains clearly. Intensity and emotional connection are not opposites. In fact, for many women, the desire for rougher sex only shows up when they feel deeply safe, and if you misunderstand that, you'll either hold back or overcompensate. Both kill attraction quietly. In this video, we're going to unpack what's really happening psychologically when some women crave rougher intimacy instead of traditional lovemaking. Not stereotypes, not fantasy cliches, real emotional dynamics. Because this isn't about aggression, it's about nervous system activation, trust, polarity, and feeling deeply desired. When you understand the psychology behind it, your confidence changes. You stop guessing what she wants. You stop performing. You start leading with calm, grounded strength. And here's why this matters. The modern man is told to be softer, but not taught how to stay masculine while doing it. That balance is everything. Let's break it down clearly. One of the biggest misunderstandings around rough sex is the assumption that it's rooted in dysfunction, trauma, or emotional disconnection. That's not what the research shows. Sexual arousal is deeply connected to context and perceived safety. Studies published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine and broader neuroscience research on arousal demonstrate that the brain's threat and excitement pathways overlap. The same systems that process adrenaline and heightened alertness can amplify sexual arousal, but only when the brain interprets the situation as safe. This is where emotional security becomes critical. When a woman feels safe with you, emotionally respected, physically secure, and psychologically comfortable, her nervous system can reinterpret intensity as thrilling rather than threatening. The amygdala, which helps detect danger, doesn't shut down. It recalibrates. The body experiences heightened sensation without triggering fear. That's why roughness in a trusting relationship feels completely different than aggression in an unsafe one. The behavior might look similar from the outside: firmer touch, stronger presence, more physical assertiveness, but internally, the experience is defined by trust. Without safety, intensity activates anxiety. With safety, it activates desire. This is the part most men never learn. Rough sex, when consensual and grounded in connection, isn't about chaos. It's about controlled intensity layered on top of emotional security. And biologically, that combination can be extremely arousing. In real relationships, this plays out in subtle ways. A woman who trusts you deeply may relax more when you take the lead. Her breathing changes. Her body softens. She becomes more responsive when you guide her with certainty instead of hesitation. Most men assume they need to ask for permission at every micro moment, or they swing the opposite direction and imitate something exaggerated they saw online. Both approaches disconnect you from her real-time responses. What actually works is attunement. You stay present. You notice her body language. You feel whether she's leaning in or pulling back. Intensity isn't forced. It's invited and received. In my experience, women often crave firmness, not because they want to be overpowered, but because they want to feel your contained strength. Contained is the key word. She wants to feel that you're in control of yourself, that your strength is deliberate, not reactive. When you hesitate constantly, it can feel uncertain. When you become overly aggressive, it feels unsafe. But when you're grounded, calm voice, steady movements, confident touch, intensity feels erotic rather than alarming. That balance is masculine emotional intelligence in action. So here's something to reflect on. When you think about being more dominant or intense, are you acting from insecurity or from calm, controlled confidence? Desire is not fueled by comfort alone. It's fueled by contrast. Attachment research and modern relationship psychology consistently show that long-term attraction requires both closeness and differentiation. In other words, emotional bonding creates safety, but polarity creates spark. When everything feels equal, neutral, and overly careful, erotic charge can quietly flatten. Polarity isn't about power imbalance, it's about energetic contrast. One partner embodying direction, steadiness, and grounded leadership allows the other to momentarily surrender into sensation. That contrast activates tension, and tension is the engine of desire. Neuroscience helps explain this. The brain responds strongly to novelty, unpredictability, and shifts in intensity. When energy changes, tone of voice deepens, touch becomes firmer, eye contact becomes more commanding, the nervous system registers it as a meaningful shift. That shift creates heightened awareness. For many women, traditional lovemaking nurtures connection. But intensity introduces unpredictability, and unpredictability activates arousal systems in the brain. This doesn't mean chaos, it means contrast. When you combine emotional safety with confident direction, you create a dynamic where she can feel both secure and stimulated. Without polarity, relationships often become affectionate but less erotic over time. Here's the nuance. Connection sustains love. Polarity sustains desire. Both matter. And when intensity shows up inside a safe bond, it amplifies tension instead of threatening it. In real life, this shows up in simple but powerful ways. If every intimate moment feels slow, cautious, and emotionally identical, your dynamic becomes predictable. Predictability builds comfort, but too much of it lowers sexual charge. Now imagine something different. You maintain strong eye contact instead of looking away. You move her closer without asking verbally. You guide her body with certainty. Your tone shifts slightly lower and slower. You're not performing dominance. You're embodying direction. That shift changes the emotional temperature. Most men are afraid of this because they confuse decisiveness with disrespect, so they stay overly neutral. But neutrality rarely creates spark. In my experience, what many women respond to isn't aggression, it's clarity. When you know what you want and express it calmly, it creates a container where she can relax into her role within the moment. And here's something important. Polarity is dynamic. It's not about being dominant 24/7. It's about knowing when to step forward and when to soften. The contrast between those states is what keeps desire alive. So ask yourself honestly, in your relationship, have you become so focused on being agreeable that you've stopped leading at all? Here's something that might surprise you. The stronger the emotional trust, the more space there is for intensity. Research from the Kinsey Institute and decades of attachment studies show a clear pattern. Sexual openness and exploration increase when emotional security is high. When someone feels securely attached, their nervous system is less focused on scanning for threat and more open to sensation. From a neurological perspective, safety reduces hypervigilance. The prefrontal cortex relaxes its protective monitoring, and the body becomes more receptive to arousal cues. That's when desire expands instead of contracts. So when a woman expresses interest in rougher intimacy, it often isn't a sign of detachment. It can actually be evidence of trust. Trust says, I know you're paying attention. Trust says, I know you won't cross my boundaries. Trust says, I can let go because you're grounded. And letting go is central to arousal. Without trust, intensity feels intrusive. With trust, it feels liberating. This is why roughness inside a secure bond feels completely different from roughness in a disconnected dynamic. The behavior alone doesn't determine the experience. The emotional foundation does. Intensity without trust creates anxiety. Intensity built on trust creates surrender. That distinction changes everything. In real relationships, you can see this clearly. When trust is shallow, even small increases in intensity can create tension. She might stiffen slightly. Her breathing changes in a guarded way. Her body doesn't fully open. But when trust is deep, something different happens. She relaxes more as you become more assertive. Her responses become more fluid. There's less hesitation because she knows you're attuned. In my experience, many men focus on techniques while ignoring emotional groundwork. They ask, what should I do differently in bed? Instead of asking, how safe does she feel with me outside of it? Does she feel respected during disagreements? Does she feel heard when she shares something vulnerable? Does she trust that you're emotionally steady? These questions matter more than any move. When emotional trust is consistent, intensity becomes an extension of connection rather than a departure from it. You don't need to force anything. Exploration happens naturally because the foundation is solid. And here's the deeper layer. When a woman feels safe enough to explore rougher dynamics with you, it's often a sign she sees you as stable. So reflect honestly. Are you building the kind of emotional consistency that makes that level of trust possible? One of the biggest mistakes men make is taking sexual preferences too literally. When a woman says she enjoys rougher intimacy, many men assume it reflects something dark, unresolved, or emotionally detached. But research on sexual fantasy tells a much more nuanced story. Studies on fantasy patterns consistently show that many people are aroused by scenarios involving power dynamics, intensity, or dominance, even when they strongly value equality and emotional intimacy in real life. Fantasy operates in symbolic language, not literal desire for harm or imbalance. Intensity in fantasy often represents heightened emotion. It compresses experience. It magnifies sensation. It creates psychological focus. For many women, rough doesn't mean unsafe. It means feeling overtaken by desire. It means feeling chosen in a powerful way. It means experiencing a temporary loss of control inside a safe container. That distinction matters. Desire thrives on feeling wanted. When intensity is present, it can signal urgency and hunger. And from a psychological standpoint, feeling deeply desired activates validation pathways in the brain, reinforcing attraction and bonding. So, what looks like aggression from the outside is often interpreted internally as passion, as long as it's grounded in consent and trust. Fantasy is rarely about disrespect. It's about emotional amplification. Understanding that prevents you from mislabeling healthy desire as dysfunction. In real life, this means you need to listen beneath the words. When she says she wants it rougher, she may not be asking for you to become someone else. She may be asking you to express more desire, more certainty, more hunger. Most men either retreat into politeness or overcorrect into exaggerated dominance. Both miss the emotional core of what she's actually responding to. What she often wants is to feel your presence fully. Strong hands, steady eye contact, clear direction, a sense that you are deeply engaged and unapologetic about wanting her. That's very different from aggression. In my experience, when men shift their focus from "how do I act rough" to "how do I embody desire confidently," everything changes. The energy becomes authentic instead of performative. You don't need to copy anything extreme. You need to stay attuned, watch her breathing, notice her responses. Let intensity build gradually rather than forcing it. And remember, fantasy thrives when reality feels safe. Outside the bedroom, consistency and respect matter more than any moment of intensity. So here's something worth asking yourself. Are you interpreting her desire at surface level, or are you willing to understand the emotional meaning underneath it? The most emotionally mature relationships don't choose between tenderness and intensity. They integrate both. From a biological standpoint, bonding and arousal are influenced by different but complementary systems. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, increases with touch, eye contact, emotional closeness, and affectionate intimacy. It promotes trust and attachment. Adrenaline and dopamine, on the other hand, are activated by novelty, intensity, and heightened stimulation. They create excitement and drive. When couples rely only on comfort and closeness, oxytocin is present, but dopamine can slowly decline. The relationship feels loving but less charged. When couples rely only on intensity without emotional depth, adrenaline may spike, but long-term attachment weakens. Sustainable passion requires both systems working together. Research in long-term relationship satisfaction consistently shows that couples who maintain both emotional intimacy and erotic variation report stronger connection over time. It's not about extremes, it's about range. Tenderness builds safety. Intensity builds spark. Together, they reinforce each other. When rougher intimacy exists within emotional warmth, it doesn't threaten the bond, it deepens it. The contrast between slow, connected moments and powerful, charged ones creates a dynamic rhythm that keeps desire alive. This balance isn't accidental, it's intentional. And men who understand this stop seeing sexuality as performance and start seeing it as emotional leadership. In real relationships, integration looks simple but deliberate. Some nights, you slow everything down. You hold her, you move gently. you stay emotionally open and connected. Other nights, you shift the energy. Your movements are firmer. Your voice carries more certainty. You guide instead of asking. The contrast is what creates depth. Most men lean heavily in one direction. Either they default to constant tenderness because it feels safe, or they chase intensity because they think that's what maintains attraction. The truth is, neither extreme works long-term. In my experience, what builds lasting desire is flexibility, the ability to read the moment and adjust, the confidence to lead without overpowering, the awareness to soften without losing presence. You don't announce the shift, you embody it. And here's the key. After intensity, reconnect. Eye contact. Calm breathing. Physical closeness. That reinforcement tells her nervous system, we're still safe. That's what turns intensity into bonding instead of distance. When you can move fluidly between warmth and strength, she experiences you as grounded, emotionally intelligent, and deeply masculine in the healthiest sense. So ask yourself honestly, are you operating from one mode out of habit, or are you capable of holding both connection and raw energy with confidence? Let's bring this back to center. When a woman says she enjoys rougher intimacy, it doesn't mean she values connection less. It often means she feels safe enough to experience more. Safety allows intensity to feel exciting instead of threatening. Trust allows surrender. Polarity creates spark, and emotional intimacy makes all of it sustainable. The real takeaway is this: intensity without connection feels empty, and connection without polarity can lose charge. Mature masculinity is the ability to hold both: calm strength, emotional awareness, decisive presence. You don't need to become someone louder or harder. You need to become more grounded, more attuned, more confident in your ability to lead while staying respectful. When you understand the psychology behind desire, you stop guessing. And when you stop guessing, your presence becomes naturally more powerful. If this gave you clarity, take a second to like the video and subscribe. This channel is about helping you build confidence, intimacy, and emotional intelligence without shame or performance tactics. In the comments, I'd like to hear from you. Do you think most men misunderstand what women mean by rough? And where do you personally lean, more toward tenderness or intensity? Your experience matters, and these conversations help other men realize they're not alone in their questions. In the next video, we're going deeper into emotional safety, specifically how to build it in a way that actually increases attraction instead of making you feel passive. That balance is everything. I'll see you there.